The Exorcists, plural, not to be confused with The Exorcist, and not to be confused as a sequel to The Exorcist. We've got The Exorcists. And of course, with The Exorcist, The Believer coming out here in a couple days, The Asylum had to jump on and throw out a quick movie to try to confuse people into renting their movie instead of going to the actual film or flooding the market with similar content. I don't honestly know what the hell the Asylum is ever trying to do. But would I typically ever watch an Asylum film? No. Why did I watch this one then? Because not only does it star Doug Bradley, and it actually does star him. He's in this quite a bit. This isn't just like they put his name on there and he's in the movie for like 10 seconds kind of thing. No, he's in this movie like maybe 25 minutes at least of the hour and a half runtime because there's quite a bit of characters. He might even be in it more than that. So he is like one of the main characters for sure. So the Doug Bradley on the cover is justified. But in addition to that, the music, this shocked me to find out, the music was done by none other than Harry Manfredini, the composer of Friday the 13th. That is wild to me. I just was not expecting to see that. But he did. And let me tell you, he phoned this in hard. This soundtrack, I wouldn't even be surprised if he was like, use whatever you got and just say I did it and send me the paycheck, because holy shit was that uninspired. Now, I am not a fan of exorcism movies. This is the perfect example of how formulaic the Exorcist movies are, because the Asylum, for maybe the first time ever, made an okay movie. This is actually fine. This is like totally like standard low budget film. That's it. It's got an okay script. It's got okay directing. It's got fine performances. When the movie started, it starts with Doug Bradley in a graveyard and someone comes and talks to him, and their conversation, I was like, this isn't terrible. The dialogue actually feels pretty natural. This actually feels like somewhat of a movie. Like, I'm kind of shocked because the Asylum is usually pure garbage. Now, am I saying this movie is good? No, I'm not saying the movie's good. But for an Asylum movie, this is the best movie I've ever seen them make. Now, I don't watch a lot of them. Maybe Asylum has upped their quality as of late that I'm unaware of. But this was actually pretty good for Asylum, and that made it like a masterpiece by Asylum's, standards. As far as the story goes, this is pretty standard fare Exorcist, and that was the point I was trying to make. Is like, if the Asylum can do this well, then the formula has officially dried up, and it needs to be changed and reinvented, because they did take all the tropes and they did execute them fine, and you had a movie that's comparable to most exorcism movies I've ever watched. I would not say this is any better or any worse than 90% of exorcism movies I've ever watched in my life. And if the Asylum is matching the quality of the majority of output within the subgenre, you've got a problem within that subgenre, right? This should be super low bar. This should be super like low scale on the totem of exorcism movies, but it's not. It's actually towards the top because everything is stagnant and all kind of staying at the same level. It's always the same story. Yes, all the tropes are here, but it does actually try a couple newish ideas. And for that, I was actually kind of like, okay. It still ended up being the same exact ending every single one of these has. So I was like, come on, man. If you're going to write a movie for Asylum, who doesn't give two shits, They're just trying to put out a product to make money. This really is a cash grab production company. Really, truly. So if you're going to be dealing with something like the Asylum, why not just go for broke? Try something completely different. Say, all right, exorcism movies, they've been done to death. They have all the same premises. Why don't we, because we have carte blanche in this area, why don't we just take the story and tweak it in a way that feels unique, and we might actually even get more views, because once people watch this, whether they're tricked into it or whatever the idea was behind marketing on something like this, referring to it as the Exorcist, you could then grab other people who, like me, very few people who actually watch this shit, and it is available on Hulu by the way, if you have access to Hulu, not Hulu, scratch that, hoopla. It is a public library associated app. If you have a public library that is in cahoots with Hoopla, there's a lot of great content on there, and brand new movies drop on there all the time. It is an amazing resource. But anyways, I was a little bummed because I felt like this is the perfect movie. Because I know The Exorcist Believer, the first movie of this trilogy, is going to be straight across the board, total safe, totally the same thing as always. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But I am pretty positive that's going to be the case. Then they'll take risks as it goes on. We might get a Halloween Ends of that franchise that totally takes risks, does something completely unique and different, and that's the one I'm looking forward to if it happens. But with this movie, it's like, why go through the tropes? But I guess because they're just hiring a stock writer and they're saying, hey, just give us a basic script, let's shoot it quick, let's get it out quick. We got to get it out right before The Exorcist Believer. So let's do it. But I still think you could come up with some original ideas. And whilst this does have a couple unique spins on it, there's nothing enough to be like, oh wow, this really invented the subgenre or something. But it's shockingly okay for an Asylum film, for an exorcism movie. But that shows you the state of exorcism movies. That's it. It's okay. The effects and the performances on the possessed are the biggest gripes I have with the film. I don't like the effects, the like white eyes, CG kind of stuff. When they're getting possessed, there's like this black stuff that goes through their eyes. It's very CG, doesn't look good. It's very typical Asylum effects for the few Asylum films I've seen. And then the performances, I don't think that there's a good enough sound mix. I don't think that there's enough going on to help and assist the actor, because when you're doing something demonic and you're throwing yourself around, there has to be really good direction. There has to be really good sound editing, sound design, stuff like that to be adding. So I don't blame the actors per se, but I did find that part to be the weakest. But everything else felt very standard fare with fine, okay, low budget acting and story. So that's it. I guess I'm just surprised. As far as Doug Bradley goes, he's good. He's good in it. He's fine. I mean, for this kind of movie, he's totally adequate. He earns his paycheck, whatever that might be. So it's not terrible, which is crazy. When I saw it was the Asylum, I didn't know it was the Asylum when I put it on, but I had figured it was. So when it said the Asylum, I was like, okay. But that happened after the opening, where the dialogue was fine and the performances were actually fine and it was shot pretty fine. And I was like, are you sure this is the Asylum? This is like, okay. But there you go. It is available on Hoopla, and I think you can rent it, but I wouldn't spend money on this. It's up to you, of course. Let me know if you're a big, massive fan of the Exorcist movies, like exorcism movies, and you got to see them all. This one's not terrible, but it ain't all that good either. All right, let me know. Bye.